Rob here, and in this video we're going to look at the contents page, which is page 3 of the July 1965 issue of Vogue. Now, again, what can we talk about here? This is again the masthead, right? This tells us what the name of the magazine is. It's part of its house style. It's part of its branding, right? So it tells us the name of the magazine and identifies it. Underneath it, you see you've got different editions. We've got the British edition, the American. This is the British edition. There's the American edition. That's the parent magazine. That's the original. There's the French magazine, the Paris Vogue. There's also Australian, New Zealand, and South African Vogue. Those three are all part of the British Commonwealth. They are ex-British Empire countries. Australia in particular would have been a dominion, if I'm not mistaken. You'll notice that all of those countries are Commonwealth countries. They're all English speaking, except for France, obviously. This tells us it's published 16 times a year, Vogue. That means once every month, 12 months, right? Plus 4 others. Those will be seasonal ones. So you'd have a special spring, summer, autumn and winter editions, I'd imagine. This one is number 9 of that year. It's Hall number 1958 since British Vogue started, and is part of volume 122, which suggests it's been going for 122 years at this point. July 1965. Now, what are the various elements of this called? Well, around the outside we've got a border. The gap between the page, the double pages, and the gaps between the columns, these are called columns, these gaps are called gutters. Lines like this are not called lines because that would be confusing with lines of text. They are called rules. So we've got rules. Down here we've got the folio at the bottom. This gives us our page number and the date of issue. These can either go at the bottom or they can go up the top. In this case they go in the bottom and in the bottom border. Nowadays they will often have things like subscription information and web addresses and stuff like that on there. Now, this thing here, this is the entire purpose for a contents page. This is your table of contents, or TOC for short. Capital T, lowercase o, capital C. As you can see, it's separated into features, which are things that only appear in this particular issue, and regulars. Regulars, in this case, being fashion and beauty. They're in it every month. It is, after all, a fashion and beauty magazine. This tells us part about what our ideal self for the female reader should be. It says that the main point of being a woman is to be attractive. You do this through consuming consumer goods that you buy, right? You buy clothes and cosmetics that make you look attractive, because being attractive is what is important to a woman. Look, beauty. That's the key thing here, right? Dolce Vita, the good life, right? Arabian Nights. Heat rave beauty, heat wave holiday, picnics. This is a common theme in this particular issue. It's about picnics, it's about travel, it's about holidaying. It is, after all, the summer issue. Okay. Features, however, take this a little bit further into culture. It's not enough to be attractive, you've got to be cultured as well. There are questions about money. There are spotlights, that's about art and culture. Things about how to do picnics. The importance of those is a lifestyle thing, right? It's got an interview here about the country Abu Dhabi, which, today is a bustling, exceptionally rich metropolis, but in those days was pretty much nothing more than a fishing port. This is pretty much before they, discovered oil and got immensely rich. Okay, there's articles here about Andy Warhol, the pop art painter, so it's high culture, it's high status. Vintage food for picnics, wines for picnics, so entertainment and cuisine and fine dining and wine. These again very bourgeois, upper class and upper middle class activities. Entertaining, how to entertain if you're having a dinner party, right? And where to travel into the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. They suggest going on cruises or flying abroad. It's very bourgeois, it's very sophisticated, it's very cultured. Now, I said this is called a masthead. Confusingly, this is also called a masthead. This tells you who is making the magazine. It is sometimes called an impressum, as in impress them, right? This is all contact information, you know, where their hot offices are, so how you can get in contact with them, copyright information, and all that kind of stuff. This is also called a masthead, like I said. This tells us what's on the cover. As you can see here, it says, cover, Sophia Loren, photographed by David Bailey. Sophia Loren was one of the greatest film actresses of her age, okay? Acting not only in mainstream Hollywood entertainments, but also in a lot of Italian art house cinema. She is also one of the great beauties, but she's more of a 1950s style beauty. Like someone like Brigitte Bardot, she had that hourglass figure. Big breasts, narrow waist, big hips, curvy, sensual, which contrasted in a binary opposite with what was becoming the British idea of beauty, with people like Jean Trimpton and Twiggy, who were very, very, very thin, almost boyish in their thinness, flat-chested, narrow-hipped, you know, waif-like, okay? Says, cover, Sophia Loren, photographed by David Bailey. David Bailey, to this day, is one of the most famous photographers of all time. Genius fashion photographer from the 1960s, instrumental in helping to create the idea of swinging London, you know, photographing people like Jean Shrimpton, like Twiggy, photographing all the great actresses and stars of the day. He himself was a celebrity. Not only did he photograph celebrities, but he himself was a celebrity, you know. He's the kind of person who was, you know, famous for being famous as much as he was for being very handsome, and also, you know, hanging around with the stars, but also a great artist, a great photographer. So this was photographed, publicity shot during the shooting of her newest film Lady L at Castle Howard in New York. Here as Lady L dressed as a Turkish dancer for the masked ball scene. Here we go again, we're talking the other, right? Her Turkishness. She's culturally appropriating Turkish dress. I don't know if she was playing a Turkish woman, I don't think so. Masthead were aristocratic husband, David Niven, the poshest of posh accents of actors. Again, this is social class, right? It's upper class. It's you know, it's sophisticated. It's, you know, fashionable. Appears as Macbeth. Her anarchist lover, Paul Newman. You know, Paul Newman, one of the greatest film stars of all time, along with Robert Redford at the time, represented a kind of very different kind of sexuality and attractiveness to David Niven, who was very upper class, proper, prim, sophisticated British aristocracy, whereas Paul Newman, who's being an anarchist in this, he's sort of like lower class. He's that bit of rough, isn't he? Right? Anyway, he's playing Casanova, the great Italian lover. Adapted from Romain Gary's novel by Peter Ustinov, great actor himself, who also directs and plays the part of a Bavarian prince, social class again. Produced by Carlo Ponti for MGM. Lady L will be released later this year. Yet again, it's equating Hollywood and glamour with sexuality and, you know, that idea of fashion and Vogue and chic, okay? That wealth and fame and beauty and sophistication all tied up in that Hollywood dream idea. So that's exactly true today as it was then. Then let's have a look at this advert. Okay, this is for Rain Shoes. They still make shoes. Okay. Essentially, they've got 2 roll warrants. In other words, they produce. They are a product or service that is used by the royal family. They've got roll warrants from the Queen, the same Queen we've got now, Queen Elizabeth II, and her mother, the Queen Mother, who's now dead, of course. But they both wore Rain shoes. This is a mark of quality. Okay, it's high status. Okay, if you know, even today, people like, Meghan Markle and I've forgotten her name now, Prince Harry's wife. Anyway, they are fashion icons. Okay, women aspire to be like them. They aspire to dress like them. Kate, that's her name, right? So, same thing in those days. The Queen was still pretty young and attractive, actually. She would have been an ideal self, a role model. Okay? So, again, shoes. Summer shoes. These are not practical shoes. These are fashion accessories. Breezy summer elegance ties in with the July issue, doesn't it, right? Rain moulds its fineness of trellis work into elegant court shoe for summer. Again, court shoe, suggesting something you wear at court, that you are connected to the royals. Right? Reinforces heel and toe to make a delicate look hold its shape. In black, white, navy, beige, and a variety of summer pastels, Regan shoes cost 21 guineas. Now, a guinea was 21 shillings, or about £1.05 in decimalised currency. More complicated. So we're basically talking, let's face it, just over 20 quid, right? 22, 20, something like that quid. But it's more complicated than that, because if it was worth 21 shillings, that would have made it in today's money more complicated. So 21 shillings, anywhere between 40 and 50 quid, those shoes, right? So, you know, not the most expensive of shoes, but not the cheapest either. You know, they're not Louboutins or anything, but still, you know, mid-range, I guess. But as you can see, though, Talyard Road, London, N7, and all range salons and leading stores. So, you know, again, it's in London, suggesting somewhere you might have to travel to get these. You know, because again, the other thing about fashion and Vogue, even to this day, is totally London-centric, because the rest of the country doesn't really matter when it comes to this kind of thing. They're just the provinces. You know, it says Britain, America, France, but it really means London, New York, Paris. Right? These are international city-states that have more in common with one another than they do the areas around them. Okay? So class, status, wealth, sophistication, these are all part of this ideal femininity that Vogue is trying to sell to its audiences through the consumption of consumer goods and cultural products. Okay? So, that is an analysis of the contents page. If you've got any questions, you know where to find me. Okay? Next page up, I think, are the money pages.